Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I think you'll have to unmute.
Girija, are you there? Girija?
No, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, Daphne, Nisha.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Girija, are you there? Girija. Hello, Angeline.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am. I'm Girija here, ma'am.
Okay, Girija. Good, good. You're online. That's Angeline and Monika and all three are here. So, can we start, Dr. Deepa?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll start. Yes, Girija, you can start. Girija?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can start.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening and welcome to the fortnightly symposium of In Tandem, Research Club of the Department of English, Queen Mary's College. I am Girija, a first MA English, and your compeer for this delightful evening. Many years ago, an advertisement for Monika film had the slogan, Memories fade, pictures don't. Well, that slogan is an interesting comment on memorializing. Photographs, books, archives, monuments, and digitizing ancient records ought to name a few ways of memorializing. As scholars, we are well aware that engagement with the past is not mere nostalgia or pointless curiosity. T.S. Eliot has given us nuggets of wisdom about the pastness of the past and its present in his timeless essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent. L.P. Hartley wrote, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." This statement, "the past is a foreign country," is also the title of a novel by David Lowenthal. How interesting it is to think of the past as a foreign country? Yes, the past must be explored. On this note, I take the opportunity to welcome our chairperson for this evening, Dr. Deepa Priyadarsini, Assistant Professor of English, Madras Christian College. Madam had received gold medal in literature at the postgraduate level and also a gold medal in basic German at the undergraduate level. Ma'am's area of specialization is American drama, European and Elizabethan drama, psychoanalysis, and translation studies. Welcome, ma'am. I welcome the presenters of the day, Ms.Angeline Sorna, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Jayaraj Annapackiam College for Women, Periyakulam. Mrs. A. Monika, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Jayaraj Annapackiam College for Women, Periyakulam. And Mrs. J. Nisha Daphne, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Thomas College of Arts and Science, Chennai. I welcome the patron of the tandem, Dr. Samuel Rufus, and our academician, Dr. Srilata, retired head of the Department of English, Chalamal College for Women, Chennai. Both Dr. Rufus and Dr. Srilata are a great support to our club. I welcome the faculties of the Department of English, the research scholars, and the PG students of the department. Once again, we at the Department of English extend a warm welcome to Dr. Deepa Priyadarsini. I now hand over the proceedings of the meeting to her. Thank you, ma'am.
Should I talk? Girija, can you tell me if I should
Yes,
begin?
madam. Yes, madam. You can. Yes, you can introduce the speakers and their topics and decide who presents first, second, third.
Oh, yeah. So, good evening, one and all. I'm privileged to be part of In Tandem Symposium, and thank you, Girija, for introducing me. By the way, I don't have a PhD. I'm not a doctor, so that's the only thing. And I'm so glad. I'm so happy to be here. Preeti ma'am extended a personal invitation for being a chairperson, and I feel very happy. So about memory studies, that's a new field, new area of research which a lot of people are concentrating on, and I think it's very relevant also in today's times, particularly when we talk about this Russia-Ukraine war and how the past is reenacting itself. In that, Russia is now described as a communist nation, and all the capitalist nations, they are coming together, so there is some sort of collective memory behind the way they group themselves, and I think it becomes very relevant when we talk about memory studies. And I read through the abstracts of the paper presenters here. It's amazing. It's brilliant. So let us, I think, begin with Ms. Angeline Sorna. So a little bit about Ms. Angeline. She did her UG in Tirunelveli in Sarah Tucker College, and she was the winner of the University Gold Medal. And she has a passion for literature, and it's this passion for literature and teaching which made her continue her higher studies after a period of 13 years. And she is the assistant professor, the Department of English, Jayaraj Annapackiam College for Women, Periyakulam. And her abstract, her paper focuses on the Holocaust memorials and the ethics of remembering. It's a very interesting abstract, and I'm really looking forward to listening to you, Ms. Angeline. So the time given to you is 15 minutes for presentation. So we will have the presentations first, and then the floor will be open for discussion on all the three papers. Right? So, Ms. Angeline, you can begin.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the introduction. I'm very happy to meet you here, Dr. Priyadarsini. And I also have to thank Dr. Maria Preeti for giving me this opportunity, because I've got great regards for all the work she is doing with Queen Maris, and the lovely club she has initiated for the wholesome development of her students. I've taken part in a few of the in tandem meetings, and I'm so happy that I could present a paper today. So please may share my screen, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes. One second. Okay. My screen is visible. Okay, thank you. So the title of my topic is Holocaust Memorials and the Ethics of Remembering. So in this brief presentation, I thought I will look into the importance of memorialization. Why should we remember? And then briefly see the shift in the iconography, or like how the aesthetic trend of Holocaust remembering has been evolving, and then its ethical implications also. So we'll go into the presentation. So now we don't know about animals, but humans, as far as we know, are the only species that are destined to live with memory. Now we have an awareness of the past, a kind of historical consciousness. But then when we say we remember, we also forget. We forget a lot, right? So memory and forgetting looks like they are two sides of the same coin of memory. So Astrid Earle says, she says actually memories are like, the metaphor she uses is like memories are small islands in the sea of forgetting. So, actually forgetting is the rule and remembering is the exception, is what Astrid Earle says. So that is why even in the personal and collective level, we try so hard to record our experiences. We write diaries, we write down, narrate, even art, history, literature, everything does that. But then the need to remember is very strong, especially when it comes to events such as war, genocide, and cultural devastations. Like in his book, Trauma as Social Theory, Jeffrey Archer, he argues like, though in war there are, there's massive deaths, but then it doesn't create that kind of meaninglessness, a kind of that kind of trauma as it happens in genocides, because he says at least there you have, it feels like a morally justified sacrifice. You are dying for a cause. That's what they believe, their families believe. But when it comes to genocides like the Holocaust, individual deaths get polluted because the meaninglessness generates a lot of trauma. So, especially why I have taken, when there are many genocides and each life is equally important, why I had chosen to speak about the Holocaust is especially because of the sheer magnitude of it. It's a state-organized annihilation of 11 million people. That's unbelievably huge. So like as we know, it's been like 6 million Jews, and then other gypsies, homosexuals, communists, political prisoners, physically and mentally challenged people. So, there has always been this very strong need for commemoration when it comes to the Holocaust. And it also becomes very complex. How do we remember? So we know why we should remember, because now even if there is there are survivors, they are frail, they are old, their personal memories are dying off. So, it has to be institutionalized. It has to be, there should be memorialization in a collective way. But then how do we remember is also a question. Like I found something very interesting, in Charlotte Delbo, she is a political prisoner. She's a non-Jewish political prisoner who was in the Auschwitz. Like this is a book, and here she talks about Auschwitz and after. Charlotte Delbo, she in her convoy there were 230 women, and out of that only 49 returned, and they spent many years there in going through unbelievable torture. And finally when they came out, this is what, like liberation, finally they've been waiting for liberation, and when that day comes, this is what she says: forward the column sets off, walks through the gate, and then the voice of one of them rises: comrades, think of those who we are leaving here. Let us have a moment of silence for them. And this voice asking for silence breaks the silence. This is what she says. So even as they were passing the gates of Auschwitz, they wanted to remember the dead they were leaving behind. So here, what's very interesting is that silence actually becomes a memorial, not a spatial memorial like the monuments we see here, but it becomes a kind of temporal memorial, where the present becomes silent so that the past can resound. So this collapsing of spatial and temporal borders, and that has always been there when we observe silence. And from the moment of liberation, I told you, there's always been this need for memorialization. People had survivor guilt. Why me? Why was I alive? Why they perished? So they wanted to remember the dead. So that was one very important reason why people wanted to remember. And then also there was to invalidate Holocaust denials and revisionist history, where people say that no such thing happened. So to invalidate those things, these memorials have to be there for the future to know what happened, and also the future to prevent it. Because like Timothy Snyder in his book, Black Earth says, he argues that actually the lesson of the Holocaust is still not learned. We really have to learn. It's a warning and a lesson. So, or, these memorials also become like monuments of warning. So, but it's also when there is a need for memorials and memories, remembering, it's also interesting how each culture remembers differently. For instance, like when we see the gypsies of the Roma, those hundreds and thousands of these Roma gypsies were slaughtered by the Nazis. They were, they had to go through medical experiments, and they were like brutally tortured and killed. But then, because of their lifestyle, their culture believes in a kind of presentist rhetoric where they remember, but they don't want to commemorate. But if you see the Jewish culture, you can actually say like Jewish culture is built on the foundation of memory. So for them, it is a commandment to remember. If you see in the Old Testament of the Bible, the word zakar, it comes, zakar is to remember. It comes like more than 200 times. So like, it becomes a command for them. So they remember in many ways, observing silence, they write literature, memoirs, oral tradition, and also most importantly, memorials. So because memorials are important, they tell a story, they give a vision of the history for us. And it's also an interesting study how the shape, the mass, the material, the imagery, the location, the words used there in the memorial, how they convey the message can be a very interesting study. That's what I thought I'll do it in the second part of this presentation. So here, if you see in this slide, this is the column of the 3 eagles in the concentration camp at Majdanek, Poland. So this can actually be considered as the earliest memorial of World War II. Because if you see the year, it was 1943. 1943, actually liberation happened in 1945. So 2 years actually before the liberation. This was during the time, during the World War. So how did this monument come about? Actually here there was this a visit, a kind of inspection by the officials of Red Cross, International Red Cross, and to make this place look like very livable, to create an illusion of order. People were given better blankets, people were given better food, and the inmates. And then they were called Bonecki. He's the name of the author, the designer is Albin Maria Bonecki. So they called him and told him he was an artist who, though he was an inmate suffering just like any others, when he got a chance to beautify the place, he was asked to make a sculpture. So he made this particular sculpture where 3 eagles with intertwined wings, they are about to soar. And for them, it was Nazi symbol. Eagle is a Nazi symbol. So they thought, okay, that's fine. But actually he meant, he meant victory, brotherhood, and freedom, which were the watchwords of Polish spirit. And also, when they built it, when they sculpted it, they actually risking their life. They placed a tin tobacco box filled with the ashes of the prisoners underneath to make it the first memorial of Holocaust. Actually, so this can be considered as the very first Holocaust memorial. And then here we see the memorial at Buchenwald concentration camp, Germany, 1945. So this was 1945, right after the liberation. So where the people used to stand hours and hours in freezing cold, for the roll call, there immediately they erected these symbols. So, and then one of these, this is very important. This is one of the very important memorials, the monument of Warsaw to the heroes of Warsaw Ghetto. Okay, so this was designed by and sculpted by Nathan Rappaport. And this was in the year 1948. And here, if you see, the style is social realistic style. And he wanted to show them in a very heroic way, because it was an uprising, because people thought, why did they go to slaughter like silently like a lamb? Why didn't they resist? So to show like there were cases where people tried to resist. So this portrayed that. And what is very interesting is here, he also, for his models, he chose people who are, survivors, Jewish survivors, and the rock which he got from this quarry in Rappaport. When he went to get this stone from the quarry in Sweden, he found that it was already dressed and ready, ordered by Hitler's favorite sculptor, Arno Brecker. He had ordered it for the Victory Memorial at Berlin. They believed that they will win the war, and then they thought they will get the stone too. But ironically, it ended up becoming the Warsaw Ghetto monument. And then later, if you see around very early years, this was a style that was given. Here we have one from Flossenburg, and now the more recent one, is the one in the right. And this obelisk and these kind of towers. This was the style that was, they wanted to memorialize, and this was the style that was in which memorials were built. But people had problems with this because, they said this doesn't actually represent, though you marked a space for it, actually it doesn't, they don't represent or mean much to us. See, if you see the one on the right, it even has a cross. For war memorial, it's okay. For a church, it's okay. For even a palace, a fort. But a Holocaust memorial should be much more meaningful, was what people thought. So then now many competitions were conducted, and towards the end of the 1940s and the beginning of 1950s, so these are some of the models, that were given, like, but some were rejected, like the ones on the right, which were so graphic. They said, okay, this is very disturbing to put up in a public place. And the left one on the right, they said, okay, left, they thought, okay, it was too much of Jewish imagery. So then at this point, like, we have to see around 1960s, the economy had stabilized, and after the war, there was much more political situation was better, economic conditions improved, and people wanted something more symbolic. And what gave them the inspiration is Picasso's Guernica. So this was done by Picasso after the Nazi bombing of the town Guernica. So this had a lot of abstract elements, but which made people think. So this was kind of an inspiration. And slowly, if you see, the memorial places started becoming more avant-garde. It became more symbolic. And here in the slide, you have National Memorial for the Martyrs of Deportation in Paris, which is in 1962. Here you see 2 lakh pebbles, squat pebbles, which are put in a backlit wall, like because for each pebble signifies one devotee, so such abstract spaces started emerging. And then here you have, after much discussion, these were the monuments that were built in Auschwitz and Majdanek. Highly symbolic. We can speak about each of these monuments for 1 hour or more. Like, so much of symbolism has gone into it. And here at Dachau, there is this installation which looks like barbed fence, but if you notice closely, it has entangled human figures in it. It's very gruesome, but it makes you think. So that was the idea. And then we have Berlin's Holocaust Memorial. I think our Mario Preeti ma'am had been there. Maybe she can tell us how she felt when she was there. This is again a very different kind of memorial space. It has 2,711 concrete slabs. It is placed in like 19,000 square feet. And the idea is they are abstract experiential spaces. They don't tell you what to see, what to think. They want you to confront the problem in your own way. So that's the idea behind this. But what happened was, this is where the ethics of remembering comes in. So what happens when each one is supposed to confront the problem in their own way? People started looking at it differently. Like a critic, Robert Semblast, says, Berlin has a new Holocaust memorial problem. It makes people feel good. So what happened? People started liking the place so much. It gave peace. They went there for photo shoots, selfies, yoga classes, juggling. So they started posting all sort of these things in social networking, also in Twitter and Instagram, whatever. So then many of us must have heard about this project Holocaust, which was started by Shahak Shapira. Now he put up these pictures and he photoshopped, and instead of the memorial blocks, he put the actual pictures taken after the liberation. The people, will you do that on top? Will you jumping? The caption given by that person was jumping over the dead Jews. So okay, will you actually do that? So he said, if you apologize, I'll take down these pictures from the internet. So from his website, he recreated these photos. He photoshopped and made it like that. So those people felt that what they were doing is not sensitive enough, and they actually apologized, and it brought. So see, these things happen. And here we have Ruth Kluger. This is Ruth Kluger, who is a child survivor of the Holocaust. And she has serious problems with Holocaust tourism. Actually, nowadays, ethics of remembering, if you say, yes, it's good that people go to these places and confront the problem in their own ways. But she says it trivializes the Holocaust. And she says, if you see here, even people are posing there in the on the tracks. And she says, like, one morning they are there watching the other sites of tourist sites. They go to the bell tower, see the dancing figures, then they get into a bus and they all come to the concentration camp, and they take photos. So what do you all think it is? And she is very upset. And in her book Still Alive, there she says, like, this is not how we pay homage. She says, actually we do all this because it gives, kind of one second. She says, like, the truth is, like, it doesn't, she has serious problems with the memorials. Okay, so she says, actually it is when you think, okay, I am a very sensitive person, I will never do things like that, I will never do yoga, I will not, you feel sorry, you cry, you think I'm a good person. That is not what is necessary. That is also not the right approach. So she has, what the problems is, it trivializes the Holocaust. Second, she says, it makes you feel good about yourself. Then the third one she says is, it shoulders your memory burden. Okay, there is something that will remember, I don't have to remember, so we put away, it relieves us of the memory burden. And then she says that sanitized, curated memorial space was not how it was when we were there. Where is the smell? Where is the trauma? Where is the fear? Where are the dead people? Everything is clean. So this is not what it was. So this is what she says. So we have some problems like that. So now, if you see in the books of James Young, and he has a very wonderful book called The Textures of Memory, there he talks about counter monuments. He says, a new generation of contemporary artists, actually they are probing artistic media to actually capture the spirit of Holocaust without actual memorial monuments. So here we see a cathedral, not cathedral, I'm sorry, a synagogue that was destroyed during the Kristallnacht. And she says this, the mosaic that was in the roof of the synagogue is now placed on the floor. And another thing here, you see the nameless library. There is no door, though there are doors you can't enter, though there are books, the spines are all inside. So actually we can't read. So the book burnings, we can't actually understand the Holocaust. This is what this particular memorial says. And this is a very, very interesting memorial that says, it's a very interactive memorial, the monument against fascism. It was lowered. It was made into a very long, tall tower, and people had to write peace messages on it. Every year it will be lowered into a space underneath. And actually, if you see, within 30 years, the monument self-destructed itself. Now, if you go, it will be, nothing is there. Just to show that how fascism is defeated. So this is another kind of monument. And here, this is a negative form monument, where there was a fountain that was destroyed by the Nazis. And now in that place, there is a negative form monument where the fountain is upside down, under the ground. So you have to, so such very interesting places, which actually James Young calls those places as counter monuments. And he says these counter monuments, they resist the idea of closure. They don't actually, they strive to be dialogical, they are anti-monumental, and they interact, they provoke, they don't remain fixed, they change, and they don't accept the burden of memory. They throw it back at the person who is watching, So they don't gather time, but they dissipate. And counter monuments, actually it mimics time, and it kind of, disperses time, and it says this is more like time than memory. So this is how, Holocaust memorials have been evolving, and there's so much to talk about. But this is a very few things I had noticed, and I've tried to trace a kind of what can I say, a shift in the style Holocaust memorials have come through. And here I've also given a few books, maybe if there are any students and scholars who would like to read more on memorialization. Here there are a few books that would help them. So that is it. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I was just about to remind you, you have just a few more minutes. Okay. That was a wonderful presentation, Angeline ma'am. You did it with a lot of enthusiasm. And in fact, I have a few questions. I am sure The others will also have questions, but I thought maybe we could also listen to the other two presentations, list down the questions, and then ask towards the end of the program. So,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
presentation, you presented with a lot of enthusiasm. Thank you very much for the presentation. So, I would like to invite Mrs. Monika for the next presentation. So, Mrs. Monika did her UG at Holy Cross College, Trichy, and her post-graduation at Gandhigram Rural Institute. And she did her MPhil at Bharatidasan University, Trichy. And she worked in St. Joseph's for 2 years from 2015 to 17 before she joined JAC College for Women. And her abstract is a cultural memory study on the select Kadar Tales. And she's going to talk about how cultural memory is not just disseminated through written texts, but it's also there very much in oral literature. Welcome, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. And I want to thank Dr. Mary Preeti for giving me this opportunity, and also my colleague Angeline ma'am for letting me to know this forum and for giving me this opportunity. I thank the research forum. Today, this evening, I will begin with what I have prepared. So, it's something my title. My paper title is on a cultural study on the select tales of or the select Kadar tales. So, my focus is on the tribal studies, tribal folk tales from the perspective of cultural memory, especially from the side of collective memory. So as we all know, as Angeline ma'am has talked lots about memorization, memory studies, what is the role of memory studies doing in the critical study. And as we all know, it's a process of reflection and remembering of the past, and it's a tool for remembering the past and all sorts of things. And all through this, we could see that memory studies, memory as a socio-cultural interdisciplinary, which is being reflecting and playing a vital, important role in various areas of social practices. So, all over the societies in international level, it's international disciplinary as well as interdisciplinary, connecting lots of intellectual standards from various disciplines, and it is playing a vital role in all parts of the society. Like a particular French sociologist named Maurice Holbox, he's saying memories are social. He's quoting that, he's saying memories are social, and those memories are passed from one generation to another generation. So this is what a French sociologist named Maurice Holbox is stating. And many of the memory studies writers like Paul Ricoeur, Pierre Nora, Henry Pogan, all these famous memory studies writers, according to them, the concept of memory, it is destabilizing the grand narratives, the grand narratives of history and power. As memory is a remembering and recording, they are the very key essential elements for the existence. And through memory, things and the events are being are becoming and belonging. It is a process of, it's a very key element for the existence, becoming and belonging. So they consider that kind of concept of memory should destabilize the grand narratives. When we talk about the grand narratives and the mini narratives, naturally we could remember of postmodern theories, Lyotard's meta narratives and mini narratives, grand narratives and local narratives, where he stated upon, from the cultural studies point of view, where he stated upon the importance of all local narratives from which the values could be there, the cultural values, social values, all the ideologies, moral values. It is not only the grand narratives, so-called grand narratives, the high culture, the so-called canonical literature only will be giving or projected for that kind of moral values. So there are lots of things, there are lots of cultural values are there from the local narratives also. This is what the state of Lyotard also saying. From the cultural memory point of view also, there are some memory studies people, writers from memory studies have concentrating on this destabilization of the grand narratives. So again, this French sociologist, he's arguing, Maurice Holbox is arguing, is memory is not an individual phenomenon. It's not a individual phenomenon. One's own personal memories alone could be projected as in the form of a memory, but it is relational. It is relational in terms of family and friends, and it is also societal and collective in terms of the social framework and social groups. So this is what he's saying. It is not an individual phenomena. Even if an individual says something, it is always naturally relational to one's own particular family and friends, and also he or she is belonging to a particular society. So it is becoming a societal and collective, like when it is coming to the form of the social groups and social frameworks. And but what most of the mediated memory today is doing is that it is focusing on the elite news media, the upper class, the what is important. Like they are just covering the media, like media news, the elite news media covering of the extreme events, like such as wars, political revolutions, and all sorts of other assassination excesses, which are considered to be sensational, like which are considered to be elite by the particular group of people. But whereas lots of other issues are also being there, which is not being shown or covered in the media, it is not being it is not being considered as a memory, so it is not being projected or or brought into the coverage. But most of our today's society of mediated memory is doing this, like most studies are doing in this way, covering only the elite news, which are considered to be the extreme events. This kind of elite news has also has a close relationship with the Holocaust studies. But when we could see that there is no consensus exists, like to give a very definition of collective memory and its ownership. Okay, so there is there is an agreement where such memory is shareable among members of a social group or community. Like it is not a perfect kind of very definition. It's always like it is a kind of agreement. It is collective memory is a kind of agreement where it is considered, or it is agreed to be the shareable memories among a particular group of a people or a group of a community, whether it could be a nation or institution or indigenous group, like a religious group or family, whatever. It is an agreement among the it is an agreement as shareable memories. So like this particular term being coined by the person Hugo von Hofmannsthal in 1962, the collective memory was coined in the year 1902 by Hofmannsthal, but actually it got its popularity through this French sociologist Halbach. He is generally considered to be the founder of collective memory, and so this memory studies, being the multidisciplinary, it is big. Of course, it is beginning as an individual memory, but growing outward to focus on broader dimensions of social memory. So the focus should be like being a multidisciplinary and bringing the broader view of the social memory and the politics of political remembering, and especially channelizing through the communicative media. So having this wider role, memory studies being the multidisciplinary, having this as a wider role, the focus should be on how these forms of remembering operate as collective representations of the past, how they constitute a change of cultural resources for social and historical identities. And like the question is how they privilege particular readings of the past and subordinate others. Like they are privileging for a particular group of people, a particular readings of the past, when it is coming to the memories of the particular people, but subordinating the others. This is the question of this paper, with the study. Like it is a question of the collective consciousness. And he says this again, this man, French sociologist Habermas says, like he is developing the concept of cultural memory and is arguing that it is impossible for individuals to remember outside of their group context. And he is rejecting to this psychological approach, individual psychological approach. So according to this person, according to this Halbach, this French sociologist, he's questioning this individual memory. Individuals, it is impossible for if an individual has a memory, it is not outside of his or her group context. It is not the remembering outside of their group context. Here he is rejecting this individual psychological approach. And there is a difference between, sometimes history can also be called as a collective memory, but there is a slight difference between the history and history, because collective memory is not a history. So histories are considered to be the dead memories, whereas in the collective memories, the active past had manifested, like has been manifested by the actions of the individuals in the present. Okay, so this is where the active manifestation is happening in the collective memory, and the collective memory as an active past is forming the one's own identities, forming our identities, like identities of the group. So it's not history. It's like sometimes collective memories are also made, like though it seems to be made from the similar material like history, but it is not like a history, but because it is manifesting itself in the actions and statements of individuals. So like as a collective memory, like every social group, like using this collective memory, it is like every social group develops a memory of its past, and they are allowing it to be preserved. Like they are having their own memories. Each and every social group have their memories, and they are allowing it to be preserved, and also they are passing along its self image, and they have its own social political construct. So whereas there is a difference, like a difference between cultural memory and collective memory. Like we have when we are studying individual memories, collective memories, and cultural memories. So like the cultural memories are there, like being quoted as cultural text, where only the so-called high cultural text, like high culture, the so-called the grand narrative memories are alone being projected or being stored in the frame of, like in only they are being assumed to be read from the perspective of cultural memories of a particular group of people. And the difference, the exact differences between cultural memory and collective memory is that it is cultural memory is not only the production and the reproduction of memory through cultural forms. It is a kind of circulation that exists between personal memories and cultural memories. Like there is a circulation, there is a kind of circulation between the personal things and the personal memories and the cultural memories, whereas in the collective memories it is cohort memories. Like it's the memories of a a group of people where they have been affected, and they are talking about the events out of which they have been affected. It's so collective memories is being they are just playing as a cohort memories, and where the members of the cohort like affected by a large group of people and then narrate the incidents, and they try to influence the collective memories for the future generations. They are trying to give this collective memories for the future generations. And this is sustaining collective memory, sustaining a community's every identity, and it is giving the possibility of the continuity of its social life and cultural cohesion. And they are being collective memories are being used to pass knowledge, cultural and social values, and a collective memory. And so these collective memories play a crucial part in keeping cultures alive. When we talk about the collective memories, given introduction about the collective memories and the part of collective memories and in the cultural memory. And as the paper focuses on, it is part of the oral traditions, like how oral traditions, especially in particular, like I'm concentrating on the oral traditions, like the tribal folk tales, oral folk tales play a vital role bringing the collective memories of this ethnic social group, the indigenous group of a particular tribe, or the tribal people. So as you all know, like it is all common. If there are some folk tales of the community, they are the shared experience, they are the shared narratives of the particular oral groups. Oral expressions are common, and there will be some professional performance in each specific group, social group. There will be some professional performance, and they are considered to be the guardians of collective memory, where they transform the oral tales and oral tradition, their own values, the lives, and the past events of the ancestors being carried from one generation to another. Even the nowadays the strangers, the urban, like those who have been if we get into that society, if you want to know about a particular tribal community, there will be some, like through the folk tales, through their oral narrations, we come to know the lives, the memories of their ancestors, their life, their group. So the oral traditions play a vital role in the transformation of their cultural memories, through their tales, folk tales. So here I have chosen the two tales, like it's not a two tales, it's a collection of tales, select tales from the Kadar community. So like it's a it's a tribal community in South India, like where they will be living in the Anamalai Hills and Paramikulam Hills. So they have its own traditions. The book, the tales, the book's names are Walking is a Way of Knowing in a Kadar Forest by Madhuri Ramesh and Manish Chandi, and Speaking to an Elephant and Other Tales from the Kadars. This is also by Manish Chandi and Madhuri Ramesh. So they have translated these people, these authors have taken an effort and translated the tales of those Kadar community, like from the elders' tales. They had some elders to tell the tales of their community. So from their oral telling, these people have translated in the form of the text. So they have taken an effort. This translation itself is a one way of like how we could say that it is like how oral traditions have played a role as a collective memory being they have passed the cultural values from generation to generation. They have used this oral tradition to pass their living, their association with the natures, their like all sorts of their values and everything, their stories, their mingling of nature, and all those things have been translated from one generation to generations. Usually the elders will be telling the stories to their children and grandchildren. So for them, they have their oral traditions. They believe that through their oral telling of these stories, they value, and their values, their moral things, like everything being taken to their children and grandchildren. So that is how they believe. And nowadays those traditions are being translated to the out of the community also, and they are reaching us like from this like, because one book, Walking is a Way of Knowing, this is a story, like it's a story kind of thing, where urban young researcher will go to the forest and live in there, and he will get into the some of the people from Kadar community, and some of the people from Kadar community will help him to explore the forest. So when they are exploring into the forest, naturally they are turning to their stories. Their stories have been unfolded, and walking is a way of knowing. As they turning to the old paths, like naturally their memory trails have been unfolded. So like all the unforgettable stories are being remembered again through their narration of the forest living, and how they have dealt like the older parts, each and every route of the forest is being described, the experiences being shared. Like this young urban is getting to know the lives of those people through this tale. And also another, Speaking to an Elephant and Other Tales of the Kadars, is having a 5 set of tales, where in each tale is having its own valuable possessions, where like how Kadars are named as Kadars, like for what reason. They have their own stories, like why they have been Kadars. So those memories, they have its own cultural meaning and cultural memories, which has to be relished and which has to reach to other generation, to other set of people. So it is doing the role of it, like where like one set is like where Kadars, like why Kadars being like, and then Kadavil's feast, like where the merging of the rain season, like the earth, sky and earth. So this is the values, like the natural values, the importance of raining season, like those cultural values are being just transformed to other generation, also to us. So like and how animals, like how tortoises are getting the stitches, and like why mushroom is staying for a long time, though it is mythical, like it has its own cultural memories, like where they have preserved it, and how they have lived along with the flora and fauna, and how they have been blessed with God's blessings, so like with abundance. So altogether, like my question is like why there should be only cultural meaning should be attained from a particular group, like the so-called canonicals. Like there are so much which are being termed as non-canonical, which are not being like there are so many indigenous literatures, there are so many oral traditions which are not being heard. Like those things are also having like memories, like collective memories. So where they are having, and they are projecting a particular group of people where their voices are being raised out. So this is my point. Like the study is also focusing on bringing out the importance of the tribal oral traditions as collective memories in bringing the role of cultural memories. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. That was a very, again, a very passionate presentation. Your question is very relevant. I would say your question is very, very relevant. Maybe you can ask the same question to the participants here after the third talk also gets over, and we can listen to their views on this. But the title, I mean, the idea that you talked about, how certain kinds of memories are elitist and they are considered to be canonical and they are the ones that are represented, and certain other texts are non-elitist and they never get adequate representation. That's a very valid argument. I think we should put it to the participants and we should also listen to their views after the third presenter is done. Thank you, ma'am. It was very, very enlightening. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to Mrs. Nisha now. Now, Mrs. Nisha is the assistant professor in the Department of English at St. Thomas College of Arts and Science, Chennai. She earned her master's degree at Bishop Heber College in Trichy and worked there from 2006 to 2012. She conducted English language classes for improving the communicative skills of first generation learners. She was also in charge of IQAC for her department, and she got the Best Performer Award for teaching learning process consecutively for 2 years, 2010 and 11, from the IQAC department of Bishop Heber College. And Mrs. Nisha is going to talk about episodic memory, a bird's eye view, and how emotions can trigger episodic memory in humans, and also how far episodic memory can affect animals. I'm sure that's going to be a very interesting presentation. Welcome, Mrs. Nisha.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Pleasant good evening to all who are present here in this fortnightly symposium of In Tandem. I take this opportunity to thank the chairperson, Mrs.A.Deepa, and our beloved Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan for giving me an opportunity to present a paper on episodic memory, a bird's eye view. I took this topic, episodic memory, because when we talk about memory, we always, we will be talking about people. So I thought, why don't I present in a different way about animals? How do animals have their own memories? So my paper will present, it will describe about how emotions trigger the episodic memory in humans, how far it will affect the animals also. Okay, now I will be presenting my PPT, ma'am. Just 1 minute, ma'am.
Yes, sure.
I'm sorry about it. Just a couple of minutes, ma'am.
No problem, no problem.
Uh, 1 minute. Nancy ma'am is here. Nancy ma'am is here. Can I send it to you now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, let me start with the seminar, ma'am. I don't want to waste the time. If possible, I will be presenting the PPT as the time goes on, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So the episodic memory. Memory, actually, it is defined as a process that acquires, stores, retains, and retrieves information. Memory is a retention of information over time for the purpose of influencing future action. Memory is not just one entity. They are different. There are different types of memories. The present study of episodic memory, it describes how emotions trigger episodic memory in humans and how far it affects on animals. Actually, this concept was it was coined by Endel Tulving. He is an Estonian-born Canadian experimental psychologist, and he is a cognitive neuroscientist, and he is known for his pioneering research on human memory. And he is credited with proposing the distinction between semantic and episodic memory. So this study, he investigated the three components of episodic memory, like core factual content, spatial context, and temporal context. Tulving, he mapped the areas of the brain, both in human brain as well as the animal brain also. So he was very much considered about how active it is, the memory during the encoding and retrieval of memory, and the facts which is associated with the places along with the context. So he uses a word, hippocampus. Hippocampus means a major component in a brain, in our human brain as well as in the animal's brain. So to give a differentiation between episodic and semantic memory, the semantic memory refers to the memory of meaning, understanding, general knowledge about the world, and the other concept-based knowledge unrelated to specific experiences. It doesn't correlate with the specific experiences, the semantic memory. But in episodic memory, it refers to the conscious recollection of a personal experience that contains information on what has happened and also where and when it happened. So recollection from episodic memory, it also implies a kind of first-person subjectivity that has been termed autonetic consciousness. And a semantic memory, it is fairly common in animal kingdom. We can take examples like chimpanzees. Chimpanzees can memorize words, and dogs can associate the commands with the action they need to perform. While episodic memory in animals, it stems from the discovery of a memory replay technique. It's a technique actually, and it was always in the hippocampus. That is the major component in the brain. So at first, Endel Tulving, who introduced this term episodic memory, he was not convinced with this. But as the researchers went by, in 1998, Clayton and Dickinson, they are the behavioral neuroscientists, and in 2008, they used a pure behavioral approach to measure learning memory performances in animals. So what happens, they conducted 3 tests with the animals. The first, to form an episodic like memory, that was called as episodic memory test. And there were 3 tests. The test was like this. They placed 4 objects. The first set were placed at 4 different locations. And the animals were set free to explore them for a period of time. And the next same procedure was applied after a time delay. And what happened, after a time delay, the same procedure was applied, and the 4 of the objects from the second set, they were replaced. And again, after another delay, 2 objects from each set are placed together, while one of them is placed at the same location, and while one of them is placed in this different location. Now, this approach in animals, it stimulated the development in them to they were searching for it. It might be like what was it, where was it, and when was it. The animals started to think like that, and they started to, these 2 scientists, they showed that animals do have the capacity to form episodic memories. And what happened? I just would like to give you one more example, ma'am. For instance, in the elephant community, during the times of drought, the matriarchous elephant, that is the herd, the master elephant, it will lead the herd for hundreds of miles towards water holes. The highlight is the matriarch elephant will have the memory for the location of a specific water hole for many decades. And therefore, it was found that the elephants have episodic memory, and it is like a blueprint of the internal state of the memory. And memory replay technique, I already told you, the memory replay technique is used in reinforcement learning, and where we store our experiences at each time step pooled over many episodes into a replay memory. It is predominantly observed in rats, mammals, and in birds also. Now they are having a research in birds also. So usually only a subset of events, usually in our life, events that have occurred in the course of a day can be recalled. After a few hours, and the percentage of the events can be recalled, it gets decreased as the time gets delayed between encoding and recall. Recall is extended to days, weeks, months, and years. The important question here is, why are some events is only stored for a few hours in the episodic memory system while others are stored permanently? For example, let me ask a question in this forum. If I ask you, can you describe the breakfast, what you had this morning? Can anyone tell me? Today morning. That will be a test of short durable episodic memory. If I can say, yeah, I can recollect, yeah, I had upma. Okay, fine. But if I ask you the same question, can you describe your breakfast on Monday, the week before last? The last Monday, what you had? Surely we will not even have a thought of that. Not even an atom of memory would be there. In contrast, the event of a car accident, if it happens to a person, that particular morning, or if we can say it's a Monday morning, when a person is driving to his workplace and if he meets an accident, and this next year also he can say, he can recollect each and every second of that accident, what happened, in which place it happened, which vehicle hit him, everything he can give it in great detail. So it has been proposed that the impact, it can be said that the impact, the trigger for episodic memory formation, that alone decides how long an event is stored in episodic memory and is dependent on emotional arousal that is associated with the event. So emotions play a vital role in episodic memory. Therefore, humans' episodic memory is tied with other mental capacities like language, sense of self, empathy, etc. Whereas in animals, the episodic memory is not necessary to find food, shelter, or mates, or to avoid dangerous situations. However, it's a dynamic nature in the environment, the ability to remember unique experiences which the animal faces. And it could certainly help animals to be more successful to live a long-term survival. Episodic memory in animals are associated with the track of its location, repeated visits to a particular place, are related with smell and time with its own memory capacity. So today, I'm going to relate this concept of episodic memory of a dog named Hachiko, which lived in Tokyo in Japan 100 years before. So let me narrate it. So Hachiko is a dog which belonged to Akita breed, and it was adopted as a puppy by an owner named Yuno in 1923. Actually, Yuno was a professor who worked in Japan, and this dog Hachiko and Yuno the professor, they too fell into a daily routine where Yuno the professor and Hachiko the dog, they walked together to Sabuyuna railway station. where Yuno would pet Hachiko to say goodbye before he gets into the train to work. So what happens? Hachiko will remain there, and it will spend its whole day waiting for its master to come back. So one day, what happens? In the meantime, the local shopkeepers of the station and the workers, they would keep an eye on this Hachiko, and while he is held with the vigil for his master Yuno, it will be waiting for Yuno to come back. So this routine continued for several years until one tragedy occurred. What happens is the Professor Yuno, he never came back home as he suffered a brain hemorrhage and died on the spot at his workplace itself. So what happens? Hachiko had no idea, because it's a dog. Nobody can tell him that your master is dead. But the poor Hachiko, he was waiting. He doesn't know what is going on. Why is his master didn't come? Might be the memory of the dog would be like that. So Hachiko had no idea, and what happened? So the loyal Hachiko, it continued to wait for his owner's return. So every day, like clockwork, when the train would appear, so would Hachiko will search for his owner. And but Hachiko never gave up hope, and it continued to wait for 9 years. And in March 1935, unfortunately, Hachiko was found dead due to a disease. And Hachiko's body was preserved then, and it was kept as a National Science Museum in Japan, in Tokyo. There are many other things they have done in Japan. So by taking this factual event, I would like to correlate the concept of episodic memory with the activities of this dog, Hachiko. Hachiko, the dog, has consciously recollected these memories related with the personal experience which it has experienced with its owner before and after. And scientifically speaking, the dog's brain would have been stimulated with memory replay technique, like what happened, where is my owner, when will he come. So these are all the memory replay techniques. And to conclude, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, episodic memory is a remarkable capacity to remember specific personal experiences, not only in humans, but also in animals. Although it was originally thought that its capacity was only for humans, episodic memory is only for humans. We thought like that, but no, with the Hachiko's incidents, it indicates that the core properties of episodic memory is also present across mammals. And this cross-species approach to episodic memory research is made possible by the use of this method. And I strongly suggest that it should be used in animal and human studies. And the most common approach to investigate episodic memory capacity across species is to determine whether animals can remember events within the context in which they occurred. And using this conceptual framework, I conclude that episodic memory in mammals depends on a functional relationship between the hippocampus, that is the activity which takes place in the brain, and it correlates with the emotions along with memory replay techniques. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very interesting presentation. Very informative also.
Sorry, ma'am, I couldn't play my PPT. I'm very sorry about it.
I think you can't really take the blame. Probably connectivity.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not really your fault, so you don't have to feel bad about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. Very, very informative.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, now I would like to open the floor for discussion. I would like the participants to ask questions to the three speakers. So the first speaker, just in order to remind you, she spoke about Holocaust memories, right? And she also spoke about how Holocaust, something as serious as the Holocaust, it has to be institutionalized so that people remember it, right? And they don't forget it. And she began very beautifully by saying memory and forgetting go hand in hand. So, but certain things should not be forgotten, right? Certain things, such serious magnitude as the Holocaust. And so that was primarily her talk. And she also showed some really beautiful memorials, which were very touching, sometimes disturbing, and some also, provocative in an immersive manner. So that was beautiful. And then Monika ma'am spoke about memory as being collective, and she also had a problem with privileging specific certain memories while not giving importance to certain other kinds of cultural memories like tribal memories. And so her question was, why not give importance to memories that have been preserved for generations through oral traditions by tribal people, because it forms the core of their identity. And so that was her question, which I would like the participants to answer. She had a very interesting question, which I'd like the participants to answer. And then Mrs. Nisha, she spoke about episodic memory and how episodic memory is not just there in humans, but you can also see this in animals. And she also spoke about this when she talked about elephants. I really liked it. The way they go find water holes. And this memory helps them in their long-term survival. So that was a very informative presentation. So that's just to refresh your memory. So now I would like the participants to ask questions to the presenters.
I would like to congratulate all three presenters for giving us such an intellectual treat. Thank you, Ms. Angeline, Ms. Monika, and Ms. Daphne. Very provoking. Angeline, you wanted me to say something about Berlin Holocaust Memorial. So I just want to I want memories. It is in the vicinity of the town, no, East-West Germany. So that it's located there. And that thing that you saw about those concrete blocks, so you go, that's on the ground level. So the memorial is below that. So I don't know how authentic this information is, but the person who was with me said that, that those kind of gray blocks there are to a kind of recreation of the Jewish ghettos. Okay, that's one thing. And when you enter the first exhibit, you have, of course, photographs and other kinds of ways of memorializing. One of the exhibits is the words of Primo Levi, which says, it happened, and so it happened again. So they are the curators, if I remember right. Primo Levi and some other person, they have curated this. It happened, and so it happened again. Nancy, can you share that slide? It happened, and it can happen again. And that is why we are doing this. Not possible, Nancy, to share? Not this. Okay, this is the church, the Kaiser Wilhelm Church. And yeah, now, so this is the modern, it looks modern here, the new church. And the previous slide is the church they have retained the church with the hole in the, all the bullet holes to remember the World War. Okay, and the next slide is the interior of the church, which is modern. So they have the old part and the new part. And then next one's Nancy. So this is these are the words there, it's illuminated. It happened, therefore it can happen again. This is the core of what we have to say. Then, yes, Monika, thank you for sharing about oral history and memory. What exactly was the question you were posing?
So when it is coming to the cultural memory and thing, why so-called the high culture, so canonical cultural memory as being only stated as cultural text. So that is the place where only the cultural memories are being, like for example, the great events, the war, like when it is being sensational, those memories, what should be read is being decided by the power and the authority. Like there are so many cultural memories, like as collective memories are being there through the form of oral traditions like of the tribal peoples, tribal society. There are also cultural meaning is being produced, and the memories of them also should be read and should be disseminated throughout the world. So
Yeah.
why it is like why there is like
But
difference
I think
between the
sensitivity to that has come, isn't it? Because Ranajit Guha, he's coined that phrase, no, the small voice of history. So, in connection with subaltern studies, so that awareness is there even with the work that G.N. Devi has done on tribal studies, Mahashweta Devi's contribution. Um, so challenging see the what is the great Indian narrative is being challenged, right? Uh,
Ma'am,
yes, yeah. Tell me. Yeah.
ma'am, can I add on to that, her
Yes.
question?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, yeah, I think when you talk about certain groups, certain tribes and their collective memories that should be preserved, that's very important. The fact that it has been translated and written down, preserved as written literature, that's a great step forward. But the real reason why incidents like the Holocaust are privileged and given more, let's say, given more publicity, let us say, is because, as what ma'am said, showed on screen, this has happened earlier and it could happen again, because the human instinct for violence is there very much, and it's always there, and we also see it now with the Russia-Ukraine war. Whatever Russia's reasons might be for starting the war, the truth is, the fact that we see is that the common people are affected. So many people are killed, and that's very frightening. The very fact that there could be murders, at mass scale. So I think that is the reason why people are more interested in looking at Holocaust literature and making others remember it also. And as Angeline said initially about memory and forgetting, they go hand in hand. There is also a danger when it comes to forgetting certain things like the Holocaust. These are things that these are incidents, gruesome events that should not be forgotten, because we have lessons to learn from them. I think it's the survival instinct in humans. Imagine if it can happen to one community where millions of people are killed, it could also happen to another community. So that's the way we think. That's the way we humans function. So anyone could just do a lot of mass killings in the name of religion or in the name of ethnicity, whatever it is, right? So it's that fear, I think, which makes Holocaust literature more popular than probably tribal literature, ma'am. But that doesn't necessarily mean that tribal literature shouldn't be studied. Of course, it should be studied, right?
I'd like to add on to that. To me, it occurred just now. It's a question of the Western and Eastern traditions. So in the West, you have, even in death, you have a grave, you have a tombstone. Much is made of that individual. The person is memorialized that way. And then you have war cemeteries, you have war memorials, and every war memorial has that lest we forget. You have so many of the European countries which I have visited, and even in Australia, they commemorate wars with that. You have a soldier, in the city center, you'll have a sculpture of a soldier with his gun, and below that you write, they have the inscription, lest we forget. So this lest we forget is a kind of thing that is there in all the war memorials. So that's one thing, that's Western. But I think in our Indian culture or Eastern or Asian or whatever, we memorialize through rituals. We enact also, the ritual is a way of memorializing. Because in case of death, we don't build a big monument in a Hindu culture. unless it's a great leader or something. There's no monuments built in the cremation ground, right? So this kind of building monuments to the dead is part of Western culture. That's what I feel. But here you have the Davasam and other ways. You remember through rituals.
Yes, ma'am. It's not the problem of Western and Eastern. I could understand the Western is there is in the Eastern concept also in India. It's so Westernization is in the form of other form. From the Aryan point of view, Westernization is there. Aryan culture. I could pursue the Aryan culture is the form of the Westernization, so indirect Westernization. All the rituals which is being mentioned here, the rituals you are mentioning, those rituals are also memorialized by a particular power structure group of people. Which ritual should
That's
be
true.
it should be memorized or memorials, the same kind of rituals, lots of spiritual beings values are there in the tribal community too. They have lots of rituals and values which they still follow, but those things are not being shown or memorialized. So the rituals they are projecting in the Indian context also is from the perspective of Aryan side. So which is another form of Westernization. I see it in
I
this
think
way.
rituals remain within each community.
Yes, but
there's no border crossing there. The practice of the ritual remains within. It's insular. It's within the group. So unless you have a physical object or a place which everybody uses, like Shakti Sthal, Indira Gandhi's memorial, or Rajghat, it becomes place where you visit, where it's a memorial of a leader. That way, I think. But I think all the research that is being done on tribal studies, instance, even know that G.N. Devi's book Painted Words, he gives you the tribal people's version of the stories of the Ramayana. Okay, um, so it is. I think that kind of work is also going on.
yes, ma'am. Of course, I understand nowadays lots of challenges and the exposure to this kind of study is there. But the percentage, the comparison, how far it is being projected, nowadays, lots of people are talking about it. It has come to the lights. It's still a question or still a kind of fight against to it, not an
True, true. I
established one.
agree. True. I agree. You have to. People are this in a kind of, it's the history wars in a way, fighting for your space in the national narrative. And yes, Daphne, that was so different and engaging. Uh, we tend to undermine animals and their intelligence. So this story of Hachiko, I had learned from somebody else, but then to think of the way you connected it to memory studies was sheer brilliance. So appreciate that very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
ma'am.
Yeah, I've said what I have to say.
Any other questions from the participants? Questions are welcome.
Today our turnout is much less than our usual turnout. I don't know why. So, students, do you have any comments to make? Any faculty here who would like to? we have Dr. Urmila here. We have Sumati. We have Senyavale. Senyavale, any questions? Senyavale is a bright scholar in our group.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Firstly, thank you so much, ma'am, for the eye-opening ideas about those abstract memorials, because I was really wondering that the idea was we can feel about the turmoils and the historical tragedy of Holocaust in our own way, the way it makes us feel. I was amused by that. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. And thanks to Nisha Daphne ma'am for this memories on animals, because there's even this mention about elephant memory in Velpari, the Tamil historical novel. There's this instance where the king Velpari would be saying that there's this mythological creature called Yari in Tamil, and the statues of these animals could be seen in temples, but it is so far believed to be a mythological creature. But there's this instance where the writer says that Velpar is substantiating the presence of the animal during the ancient times, saying that the habit of this Yari is to kill an elephant calf as long as it's born and eat it. And so there's this place called Yarimarai near Velur in Tamil Nadu, and elephants never go to that particular region even today. So he substantiates that it could be a reason why elephants don't go there still, because at some point the animal must have existed. So, and also he says that elephants have that strong memory, and that is why they still don't go there. Thank you for all those ideas, and thank you so much.
Yeah, Samuel, when you mentioned that, suddenly I remembered, Nisha, you could look at this story also, Born Free, Living Free. There's a book and it's also made into a movie. It's a story about this, it's a real story about these, you can say, what do you call them? People who, yeah, they're in the forest, this couple, and they have this lion cub, okay, this lioness, which is a cub, and they raise her in their tent, in their camp. They raise her and they let her out into the wild. And then she finds her mate and she has her own cubs, okay. So they, in terms of policy and principle, they return her to the wild. And then there's this scene where she comes with her mate. He remains on the other side of the river, and she crosses over the river, comes and sees this human family which raised her, and then she spends time with them and she goes back to the jungle. And I think there's also one part in that where she comes and shows her cubs to them. So the title of that is Born Free, Living Free. So she remembers the people who raised her. That I thought I could share with you.
Though I don't have a question, I would like to congratulate all the three presenters. And particularly this episodic memory was something that really captivated. Yeah, like I was very much attracted towards that aspect of memory. Even that thing, insight into the Holocaust and other things, that was very interesting. And we learned quite a few things today. Thank you.
Yes, we did learn a lot today. Sangeeta, you have anything to say? Sangeeta? Sangeeta, Queen Mary's College, she was here. Fatima Naseem is here. Kavita, you did on tribal studies, so you did a paper on, Kavita did a paper on Sovinder Shekhar's The Adivasi Will Not Dance. That was on, I think, one of our early speaking sessions. So I think you might to be able to say something about memorializing tribal memory. You know?
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. And I joined very late, and so like I missed the first two presentations. This episodic memory really enjoyed. Um, Regarding this, the novella did not focus much on that, but I have my own personal observations and my personal inputs on this, ma'am. I don't know her name, like who said that even like a memory, what has to be stored and what has to be erased is also dictated. So that was a valid point. That is true. So only like tribals, they have their own memories without the influence of others, especially the Western culture. Otherwise, like even like whatever we are doing, even the rituals, it has its own impact by um, anyone. It can be. It can be a colonizer. It can be a Western. So it can be even by the other people. So I mean other in the sense it can be anyone. So like when we trace no three generation which has the same rituals. So there is some alterations maybe due to it can be any reason, but blindly it is being carried out throughout the generation without knowing what made them to adopt that. It can be even want of space or something, even simple. But blindly certain things are being followed, and we don't have a proper thing. Even like it is not much documented, and what has been followed centuries back, we don't do it in the similar manner. So, that was a point I would like to say, ma'am. Even memories, no, we train our children what memory they should carry for the next generation, and that memory is also being influenced by so many factors, by the family, by the culture, by the society, and now by the social media.
Yeah, actually, this brings to mind, Vinita and I, when we used to go to Secretariat for work, we visited the fort, the fort, St. Mary's Church there. And over there, you have a lot of plaques memorializing people who died, the British people who died in India. They died of tropical diseases, died of dysentery, malaria, or died in the voyage of. And when I was looking at all that, oh, how sad, I said, oh, how sad, how pathetic, how tragic this death is. And she said, she was saying, but why should we feel so much sympathy for them? What they did as colonizers was so very atrocious, isn't it? Uh, so, if in their kind of exploration to conquer, if they met with some tragedy, well, their people can sympathize for them, but why should we? Something to that effect. So, I'm bringing this to show you about the power equation, the power that comes into the narrative. So we have in India, in all the colonial period churches, whether it is the George's Cathedral that we have on Cathedral Road, R.K. Salai, or whether we have the Methodist Church in Fort St. George, you have this memorialization of these people who died when they were in India, but they had the power to make all those wonderful marble structures, right? And they had the power, they had the space, they could impose their narrative. They could impose their narrative in our space. So maybe that answers Monica's question about why the tribal voice is not heard. It's about who has the power and who has the control. I think, yes, Madam Deepa, Madam, you can kind of take over. We've had a nice discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderful session. Actually, it was a good learning experience for me. Got to know a number of interesting ideas, and Preeti ma'am also threw a lot of light on all the paper presentations, which is very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I only wish there were a few other questions from the participants, and that would have been really great. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you so much for joining in. Ma'am, is there any vote of thanks?
I think there should be. Girija? Either Girija or Nancy will be doing it.
Yes, ma'am. I'm doing,
Girija,
ma'am.
yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Out of thanks, we had an interesting discussion. I thank our principal, Dr. Uma Maheshwari ma'am, for her constant support. Our special thanks to our head of the department, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan ma'am, for being the pillar of support in all our endeavors. I thank our patron, Dr. Samuel Rufus sir, for his continual guidance. I thank Dr. Srilata for being a part of In Tandem and enriching us with her insights. I thank the chairperson, Dr. Deepa Priyadarsini ma'am, for her enthusiastic views on memory studies. I thank all the three presenters, Ms.Angeline Sorna ma'am, Ms.A. Monika ma'am, Mrs. J. Nisha Daphne ma'am, for this informative session, which memory is the treasury and guardian for all things. I remember a quote from Cicero's words: "Memory is the treasury and guardian of all things." I thank all the faculty members of the Department of English and scholars for being a part of Tandem. Thank you all. We'll meet again after a fortnight.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti ma'am. Thank you, Urmila ma'am.
And on record, we'd like to place the work behind the scenes by Nancy. She makes the invites, she posts the link, and she's at the controls of this event. Thank you, Nancy, who is the
Thank you, ma'am.
president of the In Tandem Research Club.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank
See
you.
you
Bye.
after 40.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Angeline. Thank you, Monika. Thank you, Nisha.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nisha.
Thank you, Urmila ma'am.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am. Bye.